The first time I saw Eliza Morgan, she was yelling at the delivery guy for leaving packages on her doorstep instead of ringing the bell. I watched from my porch, coffee mug in hand, my 5-year-old daughter Emma still sleeping upstairs. It was 7:15 a.m. on a Tuesday, and my new neighbor was already raising hell in designer pajamas. Great, I muttered, taking another sip of my rapidly cooling coffee. Just what this street needs. 3 months into single fatherhood, I'd finally found a rhythm that worked for Emma and me. Our little brick house on Maple Street wasn't much, but it was ours, a sanctuary where we were healing together after Sarah's death. The last thing I needed was a high-maintenance neighbor with boundary issues. Yet something about Eliza caught my attention. Behind that frosty exterior and perfectly styled dark hair was a flicker of something familiar, a heaviness around her eyes that I recognized all too well from my own mirror. Pain. The kind that changes you. Over the next few weeks, our interactions followed a predictable pattern. I'd wave, she'd nod curtly. I'd ask how her day was while retrieving Emma's wayward soccer ball from her immaculate garden, she'd answer with minimal syllables. The neighborhood nicknamed her Ice Queen, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something else was hiding beneath that carefully constructed wall. "Daddy, why doesn't the pretty lady ever smile?" Emma asked one afternoon as we watched Eliza unload groceries from her car. "Some people just keep their happiness private, sweetheart," I answered, though I wondered if Eliza had any happiness to hide at all. Friday evening, 2 months after Eliza had moved in, Emma and I were hosting our weekly movie night, a sacred tradition that not even Sarah's death could interrupt. The smell of popcorn filled our small living room as Emma arranged her stuffed animals in a semicircle around our worn couch. "Daddy! We need more butter," she declared, inspecting our popcorn bowl with the seriousness of a food critic. "Coming right up, princess," I said, but when I opened the refrigerator, I realized we were out of butter. I glanced at the clock, 8:17 p.m. The corner store closed at 9, but leaving Emma alone was non-negotiable, and bundling her up for a quick trip seemed cruel when she was already in her unicorn pajamas. That's when I remembered seeing Eliza return with groceries earlier. "Emma, how about we pause for 5 minutes? Daddy needs to ask our neighbor for a favor." My daughter's eyes widened. "The Ice Queen." I winced. "Emma, we don't call people names. Her name is Ms. Morgan, and I'm just going to ask if she can spare some butter." Heart thumping unreasonably fast, I crossed our adjoining lawns and hesitated at Eliza's pristine front door. Light spilled from her windows, along with the faint sound of classical music. 3 knocks later, the door swung open. Eliza stood barefoot in black leggings and an oversized sweater, her usually immaculate hair pulled into a messy bun. Without her usual armor of tailored clothes and perfect makeup, she looked younger, softer somehow. Vulnerability flickered across her face before her features reset to their default coolness. "Mr. Hawkins," she said, my name sounding oddly formal in her smooth voice. "Is everything okay?" "I'm sorry to bother you," I began, suddenly aware that this was the longest conversation we'd had. "I'm in the middle of movie night with my daughter and we're out of butter for our popcorn. I was wondering if you might have some to spare." I expected a quick rejection, maybe an eye roll. Instead, her expression shifted slightly. "Movie night," she repeated, as if testing unfamiliar words. "What are you watching?" "Frozen," I admitted with a half-smile. For the 17th time. Something unexpected happened then, a crack in her facade as her lips twitched into what almost resembled a smile. "Let me check my fridge." She returned moments later with a full stick of butter. "Will this work?" "This is perfect." "Thank you, really." As she handed it over, our fingers brushed, and for a fraction of a second, her guard lowered completely. In that brief moment, I saw something in her eyes that made my chest tighten. "You know," I said impulsively, "Emma and I always make too much popcorn. You're welcome to join us if you'd like." The invitation hung between us, and I instantly regretted it. This woman had made it abundantly clear she wanted nothing to do with her neighbors. "I don't think," she began, then paused, seeming to wrestle with herself. "That's very kind, but I have work to finish." Of course, I nodded, trying to hide my embarrassment. Thanks again for the butter. As I turned to leave, she called out, Mr. Hawkins. I looked back. It's Nathan, please. Nathan, she amended, the sound of my name on her lips strangely intimate. Your daughter, how is she doing? After everything. The question blindsided me. How did she know about Sarah? She has good days and bad days, I answered honestly. We're taking it one day at a time. Eliza nodded, something unreadable crossing her face. Children are resilient. More than we give them credit for. Before I could respond, she bid me good night and closed the door, leaving me standing on her porch with a stick of butter and the distinct feeling that I'd just glimpsed something nobody else in the neighborhood had seen. That night, after Emma finally fell asleep halfway through our second movie, I found myself thinking about Eliza. About her almost smile and her unexpected question about Emma. About the way she'd said children are resilient with such conviction. I didn't know then that in just 1 week, at exactly midnight, Eliza Morgan would knock on my door and reveal a truth that would change everything between us, a confession so unexpected it would make me question everything I thought I knew about grief, second chances, and the mysterious woman next door who everyone had judged too quickly, myself included. As I drifted off to sleep, one question lingered: what was Eliza Morgan hiding behind those walls of ice? Before I continue, don't forget to subscribe and comment below. The butter incident shifted something between us. Nothing dramatic. Eliza didn't suddenly transform into the friendly neighbor who brings over casseroles, but the ice had cracked, revealing glimpses of the woman beneath. Our morning encounters evolved from curt nods to actual greetings. Occasionally, she'd even ask about Emma. Small talk, certainly, but from the woman the neighborhood had collectively deemed unapproachable, it felt significant. You know, Mrs. Peterson told me one afternoon as I helped her carry groceries from her car, that Morgan woman actually smiled at me yesterday. Nearly dropped my mail in shock. I chuckled. Maybe she's warming up to the neighborhood. Mrs. Peterson raised an eyebrow. Or maybe to someone in particular. I dismissed her comment with a laugh, but later that evening, catching Eliza's eye as she watered her impeccable rose bushes, I found myself wondering if there was truth in the old woman's words. Tuesday morning, 5 days after the butter exchange, Emma and I were running catastrophically late. My alarm hadn't gone off, Emma couldn't find her favorite sneakers, and I'd burned the toast, twice. Daddy, I can't be late again. Ms. Wilson said one more tardy and I don't get to be line leader next week. Emma wailed, her small face scrunched with distress as she clutched her backpack. We'll make it, sweetie, I promise, I assured her, frantically searching for my car keys while simultaneously trying to button my shirt for work. The keys weren't in their usual bowl, nor in my jacket pocket, nor under the stack of mail I still hadn't sorted through. Panic rising, I glanced at my watch, 8:17 a.m. School started at 8:30, and my first client meeting was at 9 o'clock. We were officially in crisis mode. That's when the doorbell rang. I yanked the door open, expecting a package delivery or perhaps Mrs. Peterson returning a borrowed casserole dish. Instead, Eliza Morgan stood on my porch, impeccably dressed in a charcoal pencil skirt and cream blouse, car keys dangling from her manicured fingers. I couldn't help but notice you seem to be having a morning, she said, her usual coolness tinged with something that might have been amusement. Need a ride? I blinked, momentarily speechless. How did you know? The corner of her mouth twitched. Your curtains aren't exactly soundproof, and you've been pacing past your windows for the last 10 minutes looking increasingly frantic. Before I could respond, Emma squeezed past me, staring up at Eliza with undisguised curiosity. Are you really the ice? Are you Miss Morgan from next door? I winced at Emma's near slip, but Eliza knelt down to my daughter's level, something softening in her expression. I am. And you must be Emma. Your dad talks about you all the time. He does? Emma asked, immediately enchanted. He does, Eliza confirmed, then stood and addressed me. My first meeting isn't until 10. I can drop Emma at school and you wherever you need to go. Unless you'd rather continue searching for your keys, which, by the way, I saw you leave on your porch railing yesterday when you were carrying in groceries. Sure enough, when I checked, there were my keys, sitting on the railing where I'd absent-mindedly placed them. You're a lifesaver, I breathed, grabbing the keys. But I can't ask you to. You didn't ask. I offered, she interrupted. And we're wasting time. 15 minutes later, Emma was safely delivered to school with 2 minutes to spare, and Eliza was navigating downtown traffic toward my office building, her sleek BMW a stark contrast to my practical Honda minivan. I owe you one, I said, glancing at her profile as she expertly maneuvered through the morning rush. Seriously, you saved me from a very unhappy 5-year-old and potentially losing a client. Consider it repayment for the movie night invitation, she replied, keeping her eyes on the road. Even though I declined. The invitation stands, you know, I said before I could second-guess myself. Every Friday. Emma would love the company, and honestly, so would I. She pulled up in front of my building and put the car in park, finally turning to look at me. Something vulnerable flashed in her eyes before she masked it. I'm not good with children. Or people, as you might have noticed. Emma doesn't need good. She just needs real, I said quietly. After her mom died, she's had enough of people walking on eggshells around her. At the mention of Sarah, Eliza's composure faltered. She gripped the steering wheel tighter, knuckles whitening. How did it happen? Your wife's death, I mean. The question was abrupt, almost clinical, but her voice held a tremor. Car accident, I answered, the familiar pain squeezing my chest. 18 months ago. Drunk driver. Emma was with my parents that weekend. Eliza nodded once, sharp and decisive, like she was filing the information away. I'm sorry. It wasn't the usual platitude. There was something in those 2 words, a heaviness, an understanding that made me look at her more closely. Nathan, you should know that she began, then stopped herself, shaking her head. You're going to be late for your meeting. I checked my watch and cursed softly. Rain check on whatever you were about to say. Sure, she said, but something in her tone suggested the moment had passed. As I stepped out of her car, I turned back impulsively. Friday. 7 o'clock. No pressure, but there will be popcorn with real butter this time. A ghost of a smile touched her lips. I'll think about it. To my surprise, at precisely 6:58 p.m. on Friday, my doorbell rang. Emma raced to answer it, squealing with delight when she found Eliza on our doorstep, a grocery bag in one arm and a bottle of wine in the other. I brought reinforcements, Eliza said, lifting the bag. Proper popcorn kernels, truffle salt, and chocolate-covered pretzels. And this, she indicated the wine, is for after bedtime, if you're interested. That evening revealed a different Eliza entirely. She sat cross-legged on our living room floor, helping Emma build an elaborate fort of blankets and couch cushions from which to watch our movie. She knew all the words to the Frozen songs and didn't even flinch when Emma insisted they performed Let It Go as a duet, complete with dramatic hand gestures. Later, with Emma finally asleep and the living room restored to some semblance of order, we sat on my back porch, sharing the wine and the quiet darkness. You were right, I said, breaking the comfortable silence. Children are resilient. But they still need anchors. Eliza swirled the wine in her glass, staring into its depths. And what about their parents? What do they need? The same, I think. Anchors. Purpose. I hesitated, then added, permission to be happy again someday. She looked up at me then, moonlight catching in her dark eyes. Is that what you're searching for? Permission. The question hit closer to home than I wanted to admit. Maybe. Sarah was my high school sweetheart. We built our entire adult lives around each other. Moving forward feels like leaving her behind somehow. Eliza was quiet for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. What if I told you that moving forward is the only way to honor what you've lost? Something in her tone made me study her more carefully. You sound like you're speaking from experience. She met my gaze, and for the first time since I'd met her, all pretense was gone. No walls, no ice, just raw truth. I am. Before I could ask what she meant, she stood abruptly. It's getting late. I should go. Thank you for tonight, Nathan. It was nice. Will you come again next Friday? I asked, walking her to the door. She paused, hand on the doorknob. I'd like that. Over the next several days, our relationship shifted again. Coffee on her porch one morning. A quick chat over the fence about her struggling hydrangeas. She even picked Emma up from school one afternoon when my meeting ran long, the two of them thick as thieves by the time I arrived home. But questions lingered. Who was Eliza Morgan before she moved to our street? What had put that haunted look in her eyes? And why did she seem to understand my grief in a way that even my closest friends couldn't? I didn't know then that I was about to get answers, all of them, in a rush that would leave me breathless. Because exactly 1 week after our first movie night, at precisely midnight, my doorbell would ring. And on my porch I would find Eliza, pale as a ghost, clutching a photograph that would change everything I thought I knew about coincidence, fate, and the mysterious woman who had slowly begun to thaw my frozen heart. Before I continue, don't forget to subscribe and comment. The week following our first movie night passed in a blur of small, significant moments. Eliza brought coffee to my porch on Monday morning before I left for work. On Wednesday, I helped her carry a new bookshelf into her house, and she invited me to stay for dinner, a simple pasta dish that tasted like something from an upscale Italian restaurant. By Thursday, Emma had taken to calling her Miss Eliza and asking if she could visit after school. Something was blooming between us, fragile and unnamed, but beneath it, I sensed Eliza's reservation. Sometimes I'd catch her watching Emma with an expression so wistful it made my chest ache. Other times, mid-conversation, she'd retreat behind her walls again, as if remembering she shouldn't be getting too close. Daddy, I think Miss Eliza is sad inside, Emma observed on Thursday evening as I tucked her into bed. Like how you were sad after Mommy went to heaven. Out of the mouths of babes. I brushed Emma's curls from her forehead, marveling at her perception. What makes you say that, sweetie? Sometimes her eyes get all far away, like she's looking for someone who isn't there. Emma hugged her stuffed rabbit closer. Maybe she lost somebody too. I kissed her forehead, her innocent observation haunting me. Maybe, Em. Now get some sleep. Friday arrived with a thunderstorm that matched my inexplicable unease. Eliza had texted to confirm movie night, her first text to me ever, but something felt off. I'd seen her car leave early that morning and return hours later, and when I glimpsed her through her kitchen window, she seemed agitated, pacing and running her hands through her hair in a way I'd never witnessed from my usually composed neighbor. When she arrived for movie night, precisely at 7 as before, I knew immediately something had changed. She'd brought snacks and a board game for Emma, but her smile didn't reach her eyes, which were ringed with shadows suggesting a sleepless night. Everything okay? I asked quietly while Emma arranged the living room for our movie. Eliza's gaze flickered to mine, then away. Fine. Just a difficult day. She hesitated, then added, Actually, Nathan, there's something I need to talk to you about. Later, after Emma's asleep. My stomach tightened. Should I be worried? No, she said, but her voice lacked conviction. It's just complicated. Before I could press further, Emma bounded over, proudly displaying her movie selection. Look, Miss Eliza. It's Tangled. Daddy says the princess reminds him of me because we both never stop talking. Eliza's face softened immediately. Well, you both have beautiful hair and brave hearts, so I think Daddy's right. The evening proceeded with forced normalcy. We watched the movie, built another blanket fort, and played 2 rounds of Candyland before Emma's eyelids began to droop. As I carried my sleeping daughter to bed, I caught Eliza standing by our mantel, staring at the photos of Sarah. That's her, she asked when I returned, gesturing to a picture of Sarah holding newborn Emma, her smile radiant despite the exhaustion evident in her eyes. Yes, I confirmed, a familiar pang of loss twisting in my chest. That was the day after Emma was born. 17 hours of labor, and Sarah still looked like she could conquer the world. Eliza traced a finger lightly over the frame. She was beautiful. You look very happy together. We were, I said simply. Not perfect, no marriages, but we were building something good. She nodded, seeming to come to some decision. Nathan, about what I wanted to discuss. My phone rang, interrupting her. My mother's number flashed on the screen. I'm sorry, I said to Eliza. It's my mom. She never calls this late unless. Take it, she urged. Family comes first. The call was brief but urgent. My father had fallen and was en route to the hospital. Nothing life-threatening, but my mother was shaken and needed me there. I have to go, I told Eliza, already grabbing my keys. Dad fell and hit his head. They're taking him to Memorial Hospital. Emma, Eliza began. Mrs. Peterson has a spare key for emergencies, but she's visiting her daughter in Chicago this weekend. I ran a hand through my hair, mind racing. I could wake Emma, take her with me, but the emergency room at midnight. I'll stay with her, Eliza offered immediately. Go. Be with your parents. Relief washed over me. Are you sure? I have no idea how long I'll be. I'm sure. Her voice was firm. Emma knows me now. Just text me updates, and don't worry about rushing back. I hesitated only briefly before agreeing. I showed her where emergency numbers were posted, explained Emma's morning routine in case I wasn't back, and then, impulsively, pulled her into a quick hug. Thank you, I whispered against her hair, which smelled faintly of vanilla and something uniquely her. I don't know what I'd have done without you. She stiffened momentarily, then relaxed into the embrace. That's what friends are for. Friends. The word felt simultaneously right and insufficient. The hospital visit stretched longer than anticipated. Dad was fine, minor concussion, some bruising, but the paperwork and discharge process dragged on. By 11:30 p.m., I was finally heading home, exhausted but relieved. I texted Eliza, on my way back. Dad's okay. Thank you again for staying with Emma. Her response came instantly, good news. Emma's been asleep the whole time. There's something I need to show you when you get home. That sense of unease returned, stronger now. What could be so important that it couldn't wait until morning? When I pulled into my driveway just before midnight, the house was quiet, a single lamp illuminating the living room. I found Eliza sitting on the couch, a manila folder on the coffee table before her, her face pale in a low light. Hey, I said softly, dropping my keys on the side table. Everything okay with Emma? She's perfect. Still sleeping. Eliza's voice was strained. She gestured to the space beside her. Sit down, Nathan. Please. I sat, noticing the slight tremble in her hands as she reached for the folder. You're scaring me a little. What's going on? I should have told you sooner, she began, her composure cracking. I've been trying to find the right moment, the right words. But then today, I finally confirmed what I've suspected since I first saw your name on the mailbox that day I moved in. She opened the folder and withdrew a photograph, holding it face down against her chest. 18 months ago, she continued, her voice barely above a whisper, my husband and 6-year-old daughter were killed in a car accident. A head-on collision on Highway 16. My blood turned to ice. Highway 16. The same road where Sarah had died. The other driver was killed instantly, Eliza said, tears now falling freely. A woman named Sarah Hawkins. The room seemed to tilt around me as she turned the photograph over. It showed a smiling man with Eliza's same dark eyes, his arm around her shoulders, while a little girl with pigtails grinned at the camera from Eliza's lap. My husband Michael. My daughter Lily. Eliza's voice broke. They were coming home from Lily's dance recital. I stayed behind to help clean up. I should have been in that car with them. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't speak. The implications crashed over me in devastating waves. I moved here to find you, Eliza whispered, her confession hanging in the midnight air between us. To understand how the woman who destroyed my family could leave behind a family of her own. To see the life she had that was so important she had to drive home that night after 3 glasses of wine. The clock on my mantel struck 12 as the truth fully registered. Eliza Morgan hadn't moved next door by coincidence. The woman I'd been slowly falling for was irreversibly connected to the darkest moment of my life. Sarah hadn't been the victim of a drunk driver. Sarah had been the drunk driver. And now her victim's widow was sitting in my living room at midnight, waiting for me to respond to a confession that had just shattered my entire world. Time froze in that moment, the clock's midnight chime still echoing, Eliza's tear-streaked face illuminated by the single lamp, the photograph of her dead family trembling in her hands. I felt like I was falling, the foundation of my grief suddenly fracturing beneath me. "No," I whispered, standing so abruptly that the coffee table shifted. "That's not possible." Sarah wasn't, she wouldn't. The police report confirmed her blood alcohol level was 0.09, Eliza said quietly, her voice hollow. Just above the legal limit. 3 glasses of wine at a work dinner. She was texting her babysitter, I assume checking on Emma, when she crossed the center line. My legs gave out and I sank back onto the couch, memories crashing through me. The police had told me another car was involved, that both drivers had died on impact. But they'd been vague about the details, and in my fog of grief, I'd never pressed for more. I'd constructed a narrative where Sarah was the victim, an innocent taken by a reckless driver, because that was easier to bear. Why didn't I know this? I asked, more to myself than to Eliza. Why wouldn't they tell me? They protected you, Eliza said, no judgment in her tone. There was a 5-year-old child to consider. What good would it have done to tarnish her mother's memory? I looked up at her, sudden anger flaring. And what good does it do now? Why are you here, Eliza? Revenge? To make sure I know my wife killed your family. She flinched as if I'd struck her. I don't know anymore, she admitted, setting the photograph down between us. When I first moved here, yes, I wanted you to know what she'd done. I wanted to see pain on your face. I wanted. She trailed off, shaking her head. You wanted me to suffer, I finished for her. Yes, she whispered. But then I met you. And Emma. I saw your grief, so similar to mine. I realized you were as much a victim of that night as I was. I laughed bitterly. Is that why you befriended my daughter? To get close enough to drop this bomb? No. Her eyes flashed with hurt. Emma reminded me so much of Lily that it physically hurt to be near her at first. But she's her own person, Nathan, bright and kind and nothing like. She stopped herself, but the unspoken accusation hung in the air. Nothing like Sarah. Don't you dare judge my wife based on her worst mistake, I growled, protective instinct surging through me. You didn't know her. She was a good mother. A good person. Good people make terrible mistakes, Eliza said softly. I know that better than most. The fight drained out of me suddenly, replaced by a crushing weight. I buried my face in my hands. I built our entire life after her death on a lie. Everything I've told Emma about her mother, how she died, who she was, it's all compromised now. Not everything, Eliza said. Sarah was still Emma's mother who loved her. That hasn't changed. I looked up at her, searching her face. How can you defend her? She took everything from you. Eliza was quiet for a long moment, her gaze distant. For months after the accident, I was consumed by hatred. I fantasized about confronting the woman who killed my family. When I learned she had died too, I felt cheated of my vengeance. She took a shaky breath. Then I found out she left behind a daughter almost the same age as Lily. And a husband who, from what I could gather online, was devastated by her loss. My anger didn't disappear, but it complicated things. So you moved here? She nodded. I told myself it was for closure. That seeing you would help me move on somehow. A humorless laugh escaped her. Instead, I found myself living next door to a man dealing with the same crushing grief, raising a little girl alone, just like I would have been doing with Lily if her voice broke. The weight of our shared tragedy pressed down on us, creating an intimacy neither of us had anticipated. For 18 months, our lives had been invisibly, irrevocably linked. What happens now? I asked, suddenly aware that dawn was approaching and with it, the reality of facing Emma. I don't know, Eliza admitted. I've imagined this moment for months, but never what comes after. Do you hate me? The question escaped before I could stop it. For defending her? For loving her still? Eliza's eyes met mine, filled with a complexity of emotion I couldn't begin to untangle. I've tried to hate you, Nathan. God knows it would be easier. She reached out, her fingers hovering inches from mine on the couch between us, not quite touching. But I can't. That's what terrifies me most. A sound from the hallway made us both turn. Emma stood in her unicorn pajamas, rubbing sleep from her eyes. Daddy, she murmured. You're home. Then, spotting Eliza, her face brightened. Miss Eliza. You stayed. Eliza quickly wiped her tears, composing herself with visible effort. I did. Your dad had to help your grandpa, remember? Emma nodded, padding over to climb onto my lap. I held her close, breathing in the sweet scent of her shampoo, suddenly overwhelmed by how easily I could have lost her that night too, if she'd been with Sarah instead of my parents. Why are you sad? Emma asked, looking between us with that unnervingly perceptive gaze. Did something scary happen? Eliza and I exchanged glances over Emma's head. What could we possibly tell her? Sometimes grown-ups get sad about things that happened a long time ago, I explained carefully. Miss Eliza and I were just talking about some sad memories. Emma considered this, then slipped off my lap and went to Eliza, taking her hand with the simple compassion only children possess. When I'm sad about Mommy, Daddy says it's okay to cry. And then we look at pictures and remember the happy things. Eliza's composure crumbled. She gathered Emma into a gentle hug, meeting my eyes over my daughter's shoulder. In that moment, I saw something impossible taking shape, the beginning of forgiveness, fragile as gossamer. Your daddy is very wise, Eliza whispered. After I tucked Emma back into bed with promises that everything was okay, I returned to find Eliza gathering her things to leave. You should stay, I said, surprising myself. It's late, and we have more to talk about. She hesitated. Are you sure that's wise? Nothing about this situation is wise, I replied honestly. But I think we both need answers only the other can provide. As the first light of dawn began to filter through my windows, Eliza and I sat at my kitchen table, two broken people connected by tragedy, trying to find our way forward from a midnight confession that had changed everything. Neither of us could have predicted what morning would bring, or how Emma's innocent suggestion would lead us to a discovery that would heal and hurt in equal measure, a letter Sarah had written the very day she died, hidden where I would never think to look. Morning arrived with cruel brightness, sunlight streaming through windows I'd forgotten to close. Eliza was asleep on my couch, her face finally peaceful in slumber, the manila folder with her family's photograph clutched against her chest even in sleep. I stood watching her for a moment, this woman who'd walked into my life carrying the weight of my wife's final mistake. I should have hated her for destroying the memory of Sarah I'd carefully preserved. Instead, I felt a confused tangle of emotions, anger, yes, but also a strange relief. The truth, however painful, was finally in the open. The coffee maker gurgled in the kitchen as Emma's bedroom door creaked open. I intercepted her before she could bounce into the living room and wake Eliza. Miss Eliza is sleeping, sweetheart, I whispered, steering her toward the kitchen. Let's have breakfast really quietly, okay? Emma nodded solemnly, then whispered with 5-year-old loudness, did Miss Eliza have a sleepover because she was too sad to go home? I poured cereal into a bowl, buying time to form an answer that wouldn't be a lie. Something like that. Sometimes grown-ups need to talk for a long time to feel better. Like therapy? Emma asked, spooning Cheerios into her mouth. Marissa at school goes to therapy because her parents got divorced and she has big feelings about it. Despite everything, I smiled. Yes, kind of like therapy. I have something that might make Miss Eliza feel better, Emma declared suddenly, sliding off her chair. Emma, wait, but she was already padding down the hallway toward her room. Eliza stirred at the commotion, blinking awake as Emma returned clutching a small wooden box I recognized immediately, Sarah's jewelry box that I'd given to Emma after she kept asking for something of her mother's to keep. Good morning, Miss Eliza, Emma said, approaching the couch. Daddy said you were sad about memories, so I brought you Mommy's special box. Looking at her things makes me feel better when I'm sad. The color drained from Eliza's face as she sat up, staring at the box in Emma's hands like it might bite her. Her eyes found mine over Emma's head, panicked and questioning. Emma loves to show people her mom's things, I explained gently, joining them. You don't have to. No, Eliza interrupted, visibly steeling herself. It's okay. She patted the couch beside her, and Emma climbed up, carefully placing the box between them. This was Mommy's special treasure box, Emma explained importantly. She kept all her favorite things inside. Daddy let me have it after she went to heaven. Eliza's hands trembled slightly as Emma opened the lid, revealing Sarah's modest collection of jewelry, her grandmother's pearls, the sapphire earrings I'd given her for our 10th anniversary, various costume pieces she'd loved. This was her favorite, Emma said, lifting out Sarah's wedding ring, which I couldn't bear to keep but couldn't sell either. Daddy says she's probably sad she doesn't have it in heaven, but she'd want me to have it more. I watched Eliza's face, expecting disgust or anger at this intimate glimpse of the woman who had destroyed her life. Instead, I saw something more complex, a profound sadness tinged with reluctant understanding. It's beautiful, she said softly. Your mommy had lovely things. Emma beamed, then continued her show and tell, pulling out items one by one. This was her special necklace from Grandma, and this bracelet Daddy gave her when I was born. As Emma dug deeper into the box, something fluttered out, an envelope, yellowed slightly with age, my name written across it in Sarah's flowing handwriting. What's that? I asked, not recognizing it. Emma shrugged. It was stuck at the very bottom. I never took it out because it has your name on it, Daddy. My heart stuttered as I took the envelope. The date in the corner, May 17th, was the day Sarah died. Emma, Eliza said gently, would you mind if I helped myself to some cereal while your dad looks at that letter? My daughter nodded, closing the jewelry box. I'll show you where the good bowls are. As they disappeared into the kitchen, I sank onto the couch, turning the envelope over in my hands. After 18 months, here was something new from Sarah, words I hadn't read, thought she'd had on her last day alive. With shaking fingers, I broke the seal and unfolded 2 pages covered in Sarah's handwriting. My dearest Nathan, if you're reading this, I finally found the courage to tell you something I've been hiding. I've rewritten this letter a dozen times today, and I still don't know if these are the right words, but they're the only ones I have. I've been struggling. Not just occasionally, but deeply, constantly. Since Emma's birth, I felt like I'm drowning, wearing a mask of perfect motherhood while barely keeping my head above water. The doctor called it postpartum depression, but that label came too late, after I'd already started self-medicating with wine to get through the days. I need help, Nate. Real help. Not the kind where you take over bedtime for a week so I can rest, but professional help. I've been drinking too much, hiding it from you, telling myself it's just to take the edge off. Yesterday I nearly fell asleep driving Emma home from preschool. That was my wake-up call. Tonight at dinner with the team, I'm going to stick to water. Then I'm coming home to tell you everything, about the depression, the drinking, all of it. I'm terrified you'll look at me differently. That you'll wonder how you never noticed, or worse, that you'll blame yourself. Please don't. This isn't your fault. You've been my rock, but I've been too ashamed to let you see how much I'm struggling. I love you and Emma more than anything in this world. You deserve a whole wife and mother, not the fragmented person I've become. With help, I know I can find my way back to being that woman again. All my love, always. Sarah. I read the letter twice, tears blurring the words the second time through. All these months, I believed I knew everything about my wife. Now I realized she'd been fighting battles I never saw, carrying burdens she'd hidden even from me. When I finally looked up, Eliza stood in the doorway watching me, her expression unreadable. She was getting help, I said, my voice breaking. Or she was going to. That night, the night of the accident, she was planning to tell me everything when she got home. Eliza crossed the room slowly and sat beside me, close but not touching. May I? She asked, gesturing to the letter. I hesitated only briefly before handing it to her. She deserved to know who Sarah really was, beyond the single terrible mistake that had connected our lives. As Eliza read, silent tears tracked down her cheeks. When she finished, she carefully refolded the pages with a reverence I hadn't expected. She was suffering, Eliza whispered. All this time, I imagined her as this selfish woman who carelessly destroyed my world. I never considered she might have been fighting her own demons. Does it change anything? I asked. Does knowing she was struggling make it any easier? Eliza was quiet for a long moment, her gaze distant. It makes her human, she finally said. Not a monster, not a villain in my story. Just another broken person trying her best and failing in the worst possible way. From the kitchen came the sound of Emma's laughter, bright and innocent, untouched by the web of tragedy and revelation that surrounded the adults in her life. The sound pulled us both back to the present, to the living room where everything had changed yet again. What do we do now? I asked, suddenly overwhelmed by the task ahead, reconciling Sarah's letter with what I knew, deciding what to tell Emma someday, and most immediately, figuring out what this meant for the tentative connection forming between Eliza and me. Eliza reached out slowly and took my hand, her touch gentle but firm. We honor them, she said. All of them. My Michael and Lily. Your Sarah. We tell the truth about who they were, the whole truth, with all its complications. And maybe. She didn't finish, but her fingers tightened around mine as we sat together in the wreckage of our past lives, facing the possibility that something new might eventually grow from the ashes. Neither of us could have predicted what would happen next, how Emma's innocent question about becoming a family would force us to confront the most difficult question of all: could we build a future together without betraying those we had lost? The days following Eliza's midnight confession and Sarah's posthumous letter unfolded in a delicate dance of grief, guilt, and unexpected connection. We agreed to take time apart, space to process what we'd learned and decide what it meant for whatever was growing between us. But in a neighborhood as small as ours, complete separation proved impossible. I saw her watering her roses 3 days after that night. Our eyes met across our adjoining yards, and something passed between us, an acknowledgement that despite everything, we were irrevocably bound. She raised her hand in a tentative wave. I returned it, surprised by how much I'd missed her presence. Have you seen Miss Eliza? Emma asked each evening that week, her innocence both a blessing and a knife twist. Did she have to go on a trip? She's just been busy, I explained, inadequately. Grown-up stuff. The truth was, I couldn't explain what was happening to myself, let alone to my 5-year-old. How could I tell her that I was developing feelings for a woman whose family had been killed by her mother? That every time I thought of Eliza, waves of guilt crashed over me, guilt for dishonouring Sarah's memory, guilt for moving forward while Michael and Lily couldn't. A week passed. Then 2. We exchanged texts, careful, measured messages checking in without pushing boundaries. I learned she was a children's book editor working remotely. She discovered I was an architectural engineer. Small facts, safe topics, as we circled the enormous truth that connected us. Then came the day that changed everything yet again. I was at the grocery store with Emma when we turned a corner and almost collided with Eliza's shopping cart. The surprise on her face mirrored my own, but before either of us could speak, Emma let out a squeal of delight. Miss Eliza, she exclaimed, launching herself forward. We found you. Eliza caught her in a hug that seemed as much about steadying herself as embracing Emma. You certainly did, she said, her eyes meeting mine over my daughter's head. We haven't seen you in forever and ever, Emma continued. Daddy's been sad. He keeps looking at your house through the kitchen window when he thinks I'm not watching. Heat crawled up my neck. Emma, I warned gently. But it's true, she insisted, then turned back to Eliza. Do you not want to be our friend anymore? Did we do something wrong? The naked vulnerability in my daughter's question hit us both like a physical blow. Eliza knelt down to Emma's level, her composure cracking. No, sweetheart. You didn't do anything wrong at all. Sometimes adults need to figure out complicated feelings, that's all. Emma considered this with a child's directness. Is it because of Mommy? Eliza's eyes widened, darting to mine in panic. What do you mean? Daddy was looking at Mommy's pictures after you left that night. He was crying. And you were crying too. Emma's perceptiveness continued to astonish me. Miss Wilson at school says sometimes people cry when they miss someone they lost. Relief and sadness mingled in Eliza's expression. That's very true. I lost some people I loved very much, just like you lost your mommy. My friend Jaden has 2 mommies now, Emma said matter-of-factly. His first mommy died like mine, but then his daddy married his new mommy Lisa. She makes the best cookies and doesn't try to make him forget his first mommy. The innocence of her comparison left us both speechless. I watched Eliza's face carefully, seeing the conflict written plainly there, the same war between possibility and betrayal that had been raging inside me. Emma, I finally managed, why don't you go pick out a cereal while Miss Eliza and I talk for a minute? Stay where I can see you. Once Emma was happily deliberating between sugary options a few feet away, I turned to Eliza. I'm sorry about that. She doesn't understand. She understands more than we give her credit for, Eliza interrupted softly. Nathan, I've been thinking about you both constantly. Trying to figure out if what I'm feeling is real or just some twisted product of our connection. And? I asked, my heart hammering against my ribs. And I still don't know, she admitted. But I miss you. I miss Emma. Being alone in that house, thinking about what might have been with my family while watching you two live your lives next door, it's torture. Come to dinner tonight, I said impulsively. Nothing complicated. Just food and conversation. She hesitated, then nodded. Okay. That evening changed everything. We carefully avoided the heavier topics while Emma was awake, focusing instead on rebuilding the easy rapport we'd begun to develop before her confession. After Emma went to bed, however, we faced our reality head-on. People will talk, Eliza said as we sat on the porch swing, a respectable distance between us. When they find out how we're connected. Let them, I replied, surprising myself with my certainty. No one else has lived this. No one else gets to judge how we heal. Is that what we're doing? Healing? I considered the question seriously. I think so. In a way no one could have predicted. She shifted closer, her voice dropping. I visit their graves every Sunday. Michael and Lily. I tell them about my week. About you and Emma lately. Her eyes met mine, vulnerable and fierce at once. I don't know if I'm betraying them by feeling something for you. I wonder the same thing about Sarah, I confessed. Especially now, knowing what she was going through, what she wanted to change. We fell silent, the weight of our lost loved one surrounding us like ghosts. Can I ask you something? Eliza finally said. That might help us both. I nodded. If the situation were reversed, if you had died instead of Sarah, or if Michael had survived instead of me, would you want us to spend our lives alone? To punish ourselves forever for something we couldn't control? The question cut straight to the heart of my conflict. Would I want Sarah to suffer eternally if I had been the one to die? The answer came with surprising clarity. No, I said. I'd want her to be happy. To give Emma a good life filled with love. Michael would say the same, Eliza whispered. He was never one to hold grudges. Something shifted between us in that moment, a permission neither of us could give ourselves but that we could imagine our lost partners extending. The weeks that followed were a careful exploration of possibility. Small dinners. Movie nights with Emma. A tentative touch of hands while walking through the park. With each step forward, the guilt lessened, not vanishing entirely, but transforming into something we could carry without being crushed beneath it. Then came the evening that would force us to decide once and for all whether we could build a future from the wreckage of our past. Emma was helping me prepare dinner, Eliza due to arrive any minute, when she asked the question we'd been dreading and hoping for in equal measure. "Daddy," she said, carefully arranging napkins at our small table, "if you love Miss Eliza and she loves us, could we be a family? Like before Mommy went to heaven?" I froze, spatula in midair. "Emma." "Because I think Mommy would say it's okay," she continued earnestly. "She always told me that love makes more love. It doesn't run out." Before I could formulate an answer, the doorbell rang. Through the front window, I could see Eliza standing on our porch, beautiful and uncertain, holding a small bouquet of flowers and a paper bag that undoubtedly contained the chocolate mousse Emma had been requesting for weeks. Behind her, at the edge of our property, stood Mrs. Peterson deep in conversation with another neighbor, both staring openly at Eliza on my doorstep. The neighborhood grapevine had clearly begun to buzz with questions about our relationship. As I moved to open the door, I realized we'd reached the moment of truth. Whatever happened next would determine whether two broken people could forge something beautiful from unspeakable tragedy, or whether the ghosts of our past would forever keep us from embracing a future none of us had ever imagined. I opened the door, and for a moment, everything else fell away, Mrs. Peterson's prying eyes, Emma's innocent question hanging in the air, the weight of our complicated history. There was only Eliza, her dark hair catching the evening light, her eyes reflecting the same terrifying hope I felt building in my chest. "Hi," she said softly, holding out the flowers. "I thought we could use something beautiful tonight." Before I could respond, Emma squeezed past me. "Miss Eliza, I just asked Daddy if you could be part of our family and he didn't answer yet." Eliza's eyes widened, meeting mine over Emma's head. The flowers trembled slightly in her hand. "Emma," I began gently, "that's not something. Why don't we talk about this inside?" Eliza interrupted, her calm voice belying the emotion in her eyes. She nodded toward the neighbors watching us with undisguised curiosity. Once inside, with Emma happily arranging the flowers in a vase, Eliza and I retreated to the kitchen to finish preparing dinner. "I'm sorry about that," I said quietly, stirring the pasta sauce. "Kids and their timing." "No," Eliza replied, her voice steady. "She deserves honesty. We all do." She took a deep breath. "Nathan, I've made a decision. I need to tell you something important." My heart stuttered. Was she pulling away? After everything we'd shared, all the careful steps toward each other we'd taken, had Emma's innocent question pushed too far? "I've been seeing a therapist," she continued, surprising me. "Trying to work through my feelings about Michael and Lily. About Sarah. About you and Emma." She met my gaze directly. "About us." And? I barely whispered the word. And I realized something, holding on to anger was never honoring their memory. It was just another way to keep them close. Her voice broke slightly. "I've been so afraid that loving again means betraying them." "I know exactly what you mean," I admitted. "Every smile, every moment of happiness feels like I'm forgetting Sarah." Eliza took my hands in hers, the gesture bold and certain. "But what if it's the opposite? What if moving forward is exactly how we honor them?" Emma's voice called from the dining room, "Is dinner ready yet?" "I'm starving." "1 minute, sweetheart," I called back, then lowered my voice. "What are you saying, Eliza?" "I'm saying I want to try. Really try, not this careful dance we've been doing." Her eyes were bright with tears and determination. Not because of our connection through the accident, but despite it. Because somehow, in the middle of all this tragedy, I found you. And Emma. I felt something long dormant unfurl in my chest, a fragile, tender hope. Are you sure? The whole town will talk when they find out how we're connected. Let them, she said, echoing my words from weeks earlier. We have nothing to be ashamed of. We didn't choose this connection, but we can choose what happens next. Dinner that night was different from all the ones before. There was a new openness between us, a decision made but not yet voiced to Emma. As we cleared the plates and Eliza served her chocolate mousse, I knew it was time. Emma, I said, as the three of us sat around the table, you asked an important question earlier about families. My daughter looked up, spoon halfway to her mouth. About Miss Eliza being part of ours. Yes. I exchanged a glance with Eliza, who nodded encouragingly. Sometimes, sweetheart, people find each other in very unexpected ways. Like in your princess movies, Eliza added gently. But real life is more complicated than movies. Emma considered this, her brow furrowed in concentration. Is it because of Mommy? Because she's in heaven and you're here? Partly, I said carefully. I loved your Mommy very much, and part of me always will. But there's something you should know. I took a deep breath. The night Mommy went to heaven, she was in an accident with 2 other people. Did they go to heaven too? Emma asked quietly. Eliza's eyes filled with tears. Yes, Emma. My husband Michael and my daughter Lily. Emma's eyes widened as understanding dawned in her childlike way. That's why you were so sad. They were your family, like Mommy was ours. Exactly, Eliza whispered. Lily was just a little older than you. Emma was quiet for a moment, processing this new information. So you lost your family, and we lost Mommy, and now. She trailed off, looking between us. And now, I continued gently, Miss Eliza and I have become very important to each other. We're still figuring things out, but we care about each other very much. Like love? Emma asked bluntly. Eliza and I exchanged glances, neither of us ready to label the tender, complicated emotion growing between us. Like something that could become love, Eliza answered carefully. If that's okay with you. Emma considered this with surprising seriousness for a 5-year-old. Would Lily be mad if I called you her mom someday? Would Mommy? The question knocked the breath from both of us. Eliza reached across the table and took Emma's small hand. I think Lily would be happy that I found someone as special as you, she said, her voice thick with emotion. And from everything your daddy has told me about your Mommy, I think she would want you to have all the love in the world. Even if it's from someone else. Emma pressed. Especially then, I answered, certainty filling me. Love isn't a replacement, Emma. Your Mommy will always be your Mommy. Nothing changes that. Later that night, after Emma was asleep, Eliza and I stood on my front porch, the same place where months ago I'd first offered her butter for popcorn, an ordinary moment that had set extraordinary events in motion. The neighbors are going to have opinions, Eliza said, watching Mrs. Peterson's curtains twitch across the street. The whole tragic story will come out. Let it, I said, taking her hand. I'm tired of living in the shadow of that night. Sarah's letter gave me permission to see the whole truth, not just about her struggles, but about moving forward. I visit their graves every Sunday, Eliza said softly. Would you and Emma come with me this week? And maybe afterward, we could visit Sarah. The suggestion, so simple yet profound, brought tears to my eyes. I think that would be perfect. As the moon rose over our quiet street, Eliza stepped closer, her hand finding my face in the darkness. I never believed in fate until I moved here, she whispered. What are the odds that in all the neighborhoods in this city, I would find myself living next door to you? Maybe it's not fate, I said, drawing her closer. Maybe it's Michael, Lily, and Sarah giving us a second chance at happiness they'd want us to take. When our lips finally met, there was no guilt, no ghosts between us, only the promise of a future built not on the tragedy that connected us, but on the choice we were making together. A choice to honor our past by embracing our present. A choice to show Emma that love, even after unimaginable loss, remains possible. 6 months later, as Eliza moved the last of her belongings into our home, Emma discovered a framed photograph on her new nightstand, a carefully crafted collage showing Sarah on one side, Michael and Lily on the other, surrounding a picture of the three of us in the center. "So we never forget," Eliza explained as Emma traced the faces with her small finger. "They're part of our story too. Our whole family," Emma whispered. "The ones here and the ones in heaven." As I watched them from the doorway, I thought about that midnight confession that had shattered my world only to rebuild it into something unexpected and beautiful, a second chance born from heartbreak, a love story unlike any other. Sometimes the coldest neighbors carry the warmest hearts. Sometimes the greatest tragedies contain the seeds of healing. And sometimes, if we're brave enough to face the truth, what begins with a midnight confession can end with a new beginning none of us could have imagined. The end. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe for more emotional journeys and comment below with your thoughts. Did Nathan and Eliza make the right choice? Would you have found the strength to forgive in their situation? Your support means everything to writers like me who pour their hearts into these stories.